So, Alex, tell me about a time when you struggled with confidence.
So, confidence, I suppose, comes throughout my life in lots of ways. But the biggest challenge I've ever had with confidence, I think, was with the fact that I'm dyslexic. Um, when I was at school, I struggled really, really horrendously at school. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought that I was, half a person, half as good as everybody else. And that was the kind of story that I carried around for most of my life. Um, when I later on and inadvertently became an English language trainer, though, that was something that I felt very, very fearful that people might have strong judgments about. I thought that people might think, well, who are you to kind of teach people English if you've got dyslexia and you're only half as good? That was my own story that I carried. And the amount of trouble I went to kind of hide that factor was immense. I mean, when I lived in Japan, I used to laminate every single word that I wanted to put on the board instead of writing on the board, because I was afraid if I wrote on the board, I might make a dyslexic slip with the spelling. And in my own mind, that meant that, I would be found out to be less of worth than anyone else, really, in terms of a language teacher or a language trainer. I used to spend many, many late nights laminating everything, preparing everything down to the single spellings of words. I'd try and envisage all of the words that people might ask me how to spell, and I'd have a list of them already prepared in my pocket, just in case. And I also used to walk around with an electronic dictionary, just in case too. And this became almost a normality for me, kind of living in fear that I would be found out as being, not really good enough to help people learn language.
And so, how did you overcome it? What did you do? I mean, obviously, you've created some strategies there. You've created carrying this kind of electronic device with you for spelling. You obviously stayed up, you prepared. But actually, in the end, that's to your own detriment, isn't it? So
absolutely. I mean, I think, yes, you're right. I created a lot of strategies, which really meant that, I didn't misspell things. I always had the right spellings and the right, structures to show people. Possibly in some ways more than some other people, because I was so carefully prepared. But in a way, that kind of helped to feed this story, which was that there was something wrong with me and I wasn't good enough. It kind of reinforced it. This all came together, and it was a kind of like a blind spot, an area that is there, but you never really see until it reveals itself. And I was back in England after having been a language trainer for about 10 years, and I was working in a big institution in the city there. And one day I was working with a lovely French lady, and we stopped to have a cup of tea, and I stepped back to go and make a cup of tea and realized that I'd misspelt a word. I'd spelt a word wrong, and I stepped back, and suddenly all of this fear ate me for breakfast. I managed to get into the kitchen, and I felt that one spelling mistake meant that I had failed at being the perfect, language trainer or language coach. And it meant that it really validated the fact that I was of lesser worth than anybody else. I was, not really fit to do my job. And to a tragedy, in fact, it got worse because one of the main coaches, the leader, happened to walk into the kitchen at the same time and said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, can't tell you because it's, and he relaxed me. He said, "Look, it's fine, just tell me." And I said, "Well, I just said I made a spelling mistake on the board." It's like, "Why are you worrying about that?" And I said, "Well, because I'm dyslexic." And he just said, "Why would you worry about that? Why would you worry? We love you here. We love what you do here. We don't care if you're dyslexic and you make errors spelling." And then after a long discussion, I realized, and he helped me through some coaching to understand that the story of being something wrong with me, this kind of almost a mantra I told myself, you know, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, actually was really holding me back. And it was a blind spot. You know, if you have dyslexia, there's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes it might mean that your spelling is not as accurate as other people's, but hey, in the bigger picture, actually, does it really, really matter? Maybe not. Certainly not to me anymore. So that was the point where I was able to let go of that fear. And when I let go of the fear and the worry about being judged, I was able to then have confidence in being more authentic about myself and more confidence in the area and space I share with people coaching too.
Thank you very much, Alex.